All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be getting into this week's lineup builder video. Now, we're going to be talking about my favorite values, which we have some very good ones because of some injuries at the running back position. We'll also be kind of adjusting our core plays as well to account for some of the better running back plays that we have on the slate. We'll talk about my favorite fades and kind of some ownership leverage spots that we can be on. And as always, touching on some stacks and then getting into not really my last look build, but almost my last look build, and then getting into kind of my favorite GPP builds as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So yes, I do want to start out here with the running back position because my core plays at the start of the week were pretty simple. It was kind of a straightforward slate. I kind of felt like at the running back spot, it was Devon Achane. That was pretty simple. And then we go down to Cam Scadaboo there at his price tag, kind of a simple play, especially in that matchup, very high floor considering his usage. And then it was going to be Woody Marks as well for the Baltimore Ravens or going against the Baltimore Ravens, which is a good spot, kind of hoping that he would continue to play 60% of the snaps, if not more snaps. He was our top kind of leverage play. It ended up being last week, guys. He was someone that I called out specifically as a great GPP play for you guys. One of like 6 running backs that I mentioned. He is firmly going to be in play as well, especially at his price tag. He is still a great play. The issue now is that we have gotten some running back injury news that is going to change the slate. So kind of the first one, and we probably don't even need to get to him now, is Breece Hall. Breece Hall, even though Isaiah Davis is probably still going to play about 30% of the snaps, we know that Braylon Allen isn't going to like overtake the Breece Hall role. We know that Isaiah Davis isn't going to do that. Isaiah Davis is going to play maybe 30, maybe 35% of the snaps, but we at least know that Breece Hall gets a good matchup and is going to play about 60 to 70% of the snaps, which is obviously something we like, and we love his usage in the passing game. He is still firmly in play because he also draws a very good matchup there going against the Dallas Cowboys. But I got to say, guys, we are getting really one of our better leverage spots. I thought last week Woody Marks, and it'll end up being it. I called this out. Like that ended up being the easy leverage spot on the year. It kind of was in retrospect, but also at the time, I felt like it was kind of obvious that he is someone that we should be overweight on. And when we look at the ownership for Rico Dowdle, I would kind of say it's the exact same thing, except for he's much higher owned, but we should still be overweight on him considering the price tag and also considering the role that he's in. Like, seriously, guys, we are getting Chuba Hubbard at 4.3. Look at it that way. We are literally getting Chuba Hubbard at 4.3 when in actuality, Chuba Hubbard's priced at 5.8. So like you're telling me that if Chuba Hubbard wasn't priced at 4.3, that he just wouldn't be extreme chalk. They are the same players. This is something I've talked about a bunch already this season. Okay. Rico Dowdle hasn't been bad as well. I know the stats might say that, and maybe people are worried just about the old line play, which is going to keep his ownership down. And maybe they worried about Trevor Etienne taking in some of the work. That could potentially happen. Trevor Etienne's not terrible. Maybe that does end up happening. Maybe that happens. I doubt it. I think Rico Dowdle is going to be maybe not in for a workhorse workload, but if he's going to give us 60% of the snaps in this game at 4.3 in a great matchup, like what are we doing? Like guys, if we look at his ownership right now, it's only 9%. Only 9%. Okay, that should probably be double. It really should be. It's a close game. The over and under set at 44, so decently highest scoring game. We look at the projection data, guys. A value of 3x. We got a 3x running back play, and he's 10% owned. Like, what is going on here? This is crazy. So, like, let's look at it further here, guys. Like, ownership-wise, Devon Achane, chalk, again, makes sense, okay? He's going to be in for probably a healthy workload, again, with Tyreek Hill out. That makes sense. Going to get used in the passing game. Rashad White, we'll touch on this in just a second, 25% on. I get that. Omarion Hampton, this one's a little bit strange, like because he was a core play last week, kind of easy to click last week, especially considering his price tag. But really, the matchup that he has was just phenomenal. We were obviously attacking that matchup. But now he's priced up. He's no longer a must play at his price tag because, again, we got so many other good plays that are cheaper than him that probably have just as much of a floor and ceiling as him. Okay. One, you got Breece Hall cheaper, 16% on. Okay. I like him. Cam Scadaboo, who should have a very high floor. He's at 11.4% on. Rico Dowdle, again, 3x. The only running back that's projected to get 3x, and he's coming in at 9.3, 9.6, whatever. Highly appealing there as well. So very big edge there. And then Woody Marks, this has to be wrong, right? There's no way this is happening again. 3% on for Woody Marks when he's kind of a clear-cut option for us on the slate. I know Nick Chubb is still going to be involved, but we're getting a running back that still is going to play about 60% of the snaps, maybe even 55, but I don't see how you put the cat back in the bag after that. Like, he looked so good. He's looked good the whole year, and we're getting him at that ownership again. Like, yes, we should definitely be overweight on that. It literally doesn't make sense. Now, maybe let's just talk about maybe why people are passing up on him. So first and foremost, I think it does have to do somewhat with Bucky Irvin being out in this game and people seeing Rachaad White at his price tag 4.7 and just going in on him because he should have a pretty high floor given his passing game usage, but he does draw a more difficult matchup than does Rico Dowdle. And so again, that's workload wise, it could end up being the same. Rachaad White probably in a full point PPR format like this probably has a higher floor just because of his passing game usage. And we know Sean Tucker's going to be involved somewhat. Just how much, we really don't know. I would imagine like 35% of the carries, but Sean Tucker's a talent. Like, could Sean Tucker be in the GPP winning lineup? I doubt it. He could splash a couple of big plays, maybe score a touchdown. Sure. But Rachaad White is kind of just an easy click at his price tag. But again, leverage-wise, Rico Dowdle, Woody Marks are clearly great leverage options on the slate already. I mentioned it seemed like this could be a leverage slate, and it is. Now, we do have another spot here as well. We got the Arizona Cardinals running backs as well. We got to try to figure out this situation. So looking at guys, Trey Benson's out. Also, James Conner's out. So kind of the thought process is that Michael Carter's going to be the RB1, and he's priced at the min K. Okay, like again, this very rarely happens. And we are seeing people kind of split the ownership between Amari DiMercato and Michael Carter because Amari DiMercato is pretty much locked in, I think, to that third down running back role. Maybe he has a chance to also be the RB1 in this. I don't really expect that based off all reports we have gotten and expectations. It should be Michael Carter on more the first and second down, and that's going to be Amari DiMercato. So literally, this actually could end up being basically like the Baltimore Ravens, like the Houston Texans with Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, where Nick Chubb, was technically the RB1. I think that's changed now into this week. And so the point here isn't really like which of the two Arizona running backs we should be on. It's more that we should be on probably both of them, especially at their price tags. Like, it's really not that much to ask one of them to be able to 3X. Now, again, I'm favoring Michael Carter. That does not mean Amari DiMercato in a full point PPR format can't also be productive. They're both in play. They're both too low. Now, if they're both at like 12% or something like that, then that's probably too high. But at the current, like, let's round up to 4%, that should probably be at 8%, and that's where I'm trying to get to with both of them, maybe 10% for Michael Carter. We're just getting too much value at the running back position, which does actually really raise up the floor of what we're going to do elsewhere with our builds. And so what I'm doing lineup path wise currently is I'm just going with Rico and also Rachaad White, just given the price tags. Very easy clicks. And then from there, I do want to get to another running back in the flex. Okay, this is the opposite of last week's slate. This is closer to 2 weeks ago slate, where again we had like 6 really good running back plays that we could be on that slate specifically, where they're almost all too good of plays to be able to like tell you guys which one to be on specifically. Whereas last week it was like the receivers. We had like 6 really good receiver plays in like the 5.5K range. This week, I think what I'm going to be doing is just clicking these two. Pretty simple. And then if I have enough money for Devon Achane, I'll play Devon Achane. Now, don't get me wrong. Jahmyr Gibbs is in a very good spot. And I also saw a very fun tidbit about David Montgomery as well. Okay, he's never played in his hometown, Cincinnati, I guess. Apparently, again, I guess I didn't see the exact source on that, so I just heard it on a podcast. So if this is wrong, apologies. But apparently he's playing in his hometown. He's going to have like his whole family there. It's a game where they're heavily favored to win. Like, it just seems highly likely that he's going to score a touchdown, that the Detroit Lions are like they're the type of team that would give David Montgomery plenty of chances to score a touchdown here in this game. And so that's what I'm expecting to happen this game. I'm expecting him to score a rushing touchdown or an anytime touchdown. It just makes sense. So he's firmly in play as well. Don't get me wrong. But getting back into like the strategy that I'm doing, Devon Achane first, and then if I have Cam Scott, if I have 6,000 left over, great. But I do like Woody Marks a little bit better considering his price tag there as well. I do like Breece Hall as well. I'm going to mix and match him there as well. That's the difficult part that we have, but that's kind of going to be the last decision that I make. Now, receiver-wise, I feel like it has gotten a little bit easier, actually, as the week has progressed. So, same problem. We're just going to be playing. Again, maybe we're a little bit concerned that ends up being a David Montgomery game, but oh well. We had the salary to be able to pay up for St. Brown. He should have a high floor. I really like him. We also get Nico Collins in a very good matchup, and I like the targets thus far this season, 6, 11, and 9. I do wish that was a little bit higher, over the last 3, but this is a very good matchup there. Going against Baltimore would be a little bit more appealing, obviously, if Lamar Jackson was playing, where it would end up being a little bit of a higher scoring game. And the fear that I have is maybe it does end up being a Nick Chubb and Woody Marks game, where because Cooper Rush is starting, the Houston Texans are able to just run the clock out and have long sustained drives, forcing Cooper Rush to rush the football. But Nico Collins, whatever, first half production, we like it. We're just going to pay up for him. We still really have Garrett Wilson in a very good spot. I'm happy to pay up for him. Obviously Justin Fields is going to be one of the top plays on the slate. If you wanted to stack him with Justin Fields, you can do that. So I'm just going with those top 3 receivers. The issue that we have when we're doing that is then we're just really passing up on a lot of the really good like sub 6K and 6K plays. So first and foremost, Cortland Sutton is at a very good price tag. Guys, he's had one dud thus far this season, right? Just kind of a random game there against Indy. And other than that, has literally went off. This is just such a strange price tag for a guy that's been uber productive ever since the bye week for the Denver Broncos last year, when like kind of basically Bo Nix settled into the Bo Nix that we know of now. He's had like 3 bad games since then as well. One of them was the season. I will take a 3 for 4 hit rate of scoring 18 or more DFS points. Like, that's pretty darn good. And this isn't a matchup that we're overly worried about. Now, we really don't need to play him because we're getting Quentin Johnston at just such a cheap price tag. I think he's still firmly in play. Jacoby Myers actually gets a little bit of a bump in this game because, well, it seems like Brock Bowers could sit, but he's definitely questionable. And Jacoby Myers gets a phenomenal matchup. You got Michael Pittman Jr., who I view as a core play already, and he's one of the value core plays that I like, given the price tag, a player that I'm still going out of my way to target. But if we can just pay up for Garrett Wilson, Nico Collins, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're going to do that. Okay, Shaheed's in a great spot. I think he's one of the better values. Darius Slayton's a little bit interesting as well, given the fact that Malik Neighbors is out. Christian Kirk actually draws a pretty good matchup in this one. Ended up getting 4 targets in the last game. Wish that was a little bit higher, but I mean, that was a blowout. They didn't really need to throw the football. And so if this game ends up staying close, this is actually a pretty good value play. Christian Kirk should be in for a little bit more usage in this game. I do think Adonai Mitchell is actually a pretty interesting value as well. Alec Pierce is still out in this game. And literally, it's funny how his goal line stupidity, let's just call it what it is, where he's trying to celebrate a little bit early, obviously fumbles the football out of the end zone. If he literally doesn't do that, I feel like he is like a chalk value. And what I mean by that is just like probably 5% owned. And I mean, he is still kind of owned, guys. He's at about 3% owned. So let's just say he'd be definitely higher than this had he simply scored that touchdown. Now, if he ends up playing around 70% of the snaps again in this matchup, he's very appealing. Like, he still made a freaking awesome play. He still was the talk of camp for them throughout training camp. And he finally saw a big play happen. Like, we could be looking back and be like, yeah, that was obvious. We should have been on him. And then don't get me wrong, we are seeing some other decent values that we could be on still, but I don't feel the need to have to go down that low on this slate, given the running back value that we have. Like, it's just not worth it. So quarterback wise, I did mention, I think we are gaining some pivot spots with some of the chalk that we're gaining. And so let's go ahead and talk about that specifically in the quarterback position. Okay, so we are seeing Justin Fields as kind of the extreme chalk, as he should be. It's a great matchup. The issue with Justin Fields is he's a bit of a roller coaster. Like, we do have to mention, he's had 2 very awesome games, but really he's had one full game that was awesome, the first game, and then he had a full game, almost a full game that was terrible, and then he had a half of football that was terrible, except for one big run at the end of the half, and then had a pretty decent second half as well. And that's my long way of saying, yes, we are in the chalk here, but it really would not be shocking for him to not be in the GPP winning lineup. It wouldn't be shocking for him to score 10 DFS points. That is the life of Justin Fields. And so, to me, one of the better plays, especially when we consider the price, is Justin Herbert. And this is actually a very solid way to get leverage against the Armarian Hampton chalk, where we could just end up stacking Justin Herbert here, guys. Let's just show you guys the ownership here for the Chargers in general, receiving stacking wise. We got Johnson at 14%, which is probably correct, and Lab McConkey at 13%. I'm okay with that. Keenan Allen at 10%. Okay, so another general rule that I think that we should be doing for this slate is kind of what I'm going to call the Justin Herbert rule, I guess, where I want in all my Justin Herbert builds, okay, I want exactly 2 of his pass catchers, okay? And so what we're looking at is Johnston, Keenan Allen, and then Lad McConkey. And we'll do that in 100% of our Justin Herbert builds. And so that is a group that I'm going to add and save. I think that ends up being a pretty solid stacking opportunity for us there. Let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the chalk here. So Daniel Jones kind of coming in at some ownership. I don't mind him. He's fine. Gets a good matchup again. Michael Pittman's a good play. Mitchell, you could sack him with. Makes sense. Jackson Dart, people are probably chasing the matchup there with the Saints and is rushing upside. I'm okay with that. Bryce Young would have been more interesting had he been getting Jalen Coker back. A lot of people are trashing Bryce Young, and it is somewhat justified, but it's also not. Like he has no one right now. Xavier Legette's injured, Jalen Coker's injured, Adam Thielen's gone. His tight end that's starting right now was some of those injured for most of camp, and it just hasn't been a good situation for him. Last year he was supposed to have Deontay Johnson as his receiver number one. That did not work out. McMillan's been a little banged up, but he's looking good. And so it's just been kind of a weird. Hunter Renfrow has been a little bit banged up, so it hasn't been a perfect situation for him, and it still isn't. But he does also draw a good matchup going against Miami as well. If you didn't play Rico Dowdle, it would make sense to play Bryce Young. Again, one of those two should end up having a good game. I like getting to Rico because, again, he's projected 3x and it's not chalk for whatever reason. And I do want to talk about Kyler Murray as well. So Kyler Murray's coming in about 5% ownership, which is certainly correct. Spencer Rattler's actually interesting leverage play as well, at about 3% as well. We don't really need to touch on those plays. I do want to talk about Kyler, though. So Kyler Murray does draw a more difficult matchup against Tennessee, but maybe with them having to go with Michael Carter and Amari DiMercato, we actually just end up seeing him throw the football even more than 41 times. Okay, last game I ended up throwing the football 41 times. Maybe he ends up having to throw the football maybe consistently. Maybe that becomes his floor while Benson is injured. If that ends up happening, if he ends up throwing the football more, he is someone that should be able to start playing better. He is rushing the football a decent amount. That does raise up his floor. Hasn't scored a rushing touchdown as well. Maybe that ends up happening for him. But I do think just the passing game in general is going to be more involved for the Cardinals, just out of necessity. Now, it is a solid matchup against the Titans. Maybe they don't need to do that. But the Titans have been a break but don't bend defense, where they'll give up some big plays, but overall play pretty solid. Maybe those plays that break end up being in the passing game or via Kyler Murray. But I just want to call it that I do think he's going to pass the football a little bit more. And then I do think we need to call it like Jared Goff. I mean, there's a lot of decent options, right, guys? Jared Goff, though, it wouldn't be shocking to see maybe this game out of him, like a random pop game where just everyone's feasting there against Cincinnati Bengals, which is just going to be a good matchup. And I do think we have to call it like Dak Prescott, guys. Scored 34 DFS points against, at the time, the best defense in the league. Now, again, you could argue that the way he was able to really dominate was just kind of obvious holding calls not getting called, but at least the rest were consistent throughout that game. And that's more me being a Packers fan saying, I'm not that worried about the defense. But that's also not to take away from Dak. He played an extremely good game. On the plays on the field that he's made, he could argue he's been the best quarterback in the league thus far this season. Okay? They're 1-3. He's not going to get that much love, but he has played great. And this matchup with the Jets is not really one that we should be worried about. But guys, just to recap, in simple, we are going to be playing Justin Fields. We're going to eat that chalk. But if you want to go with, maybe Quentin Johnston and Justin Herbert instead, I think that's fine. That makes sense. If you want to go with Daniel Jones and Michael Pittman instead, that also makes sense. Those are all very viable stacks. CJ Stroud against Baltimore, I don't think we need to get there. But if you want to go Jared Goff with St. Brown, a lower owned stack, you could do that as well. So tight end wise, let's talk about this. So I'm a little bit shocked at the ownerships right now. I thought Jake Ferguson would have been the chalk. Let's actually take a peek at the value. Mason Taylor. Yeah, I mentioned he was my favorite value play. The data is also suggesting that there as well. So if you need a dip below 3K, it's going to be Mason Taylor. But in terms of ownership, Trey McBride, Tyler Warren. I do want to talk about Juwan Johnson here. If any of the other tight ends are active in this game, and actually, never mind. We got that confirmation. Moreau and Taysom Hill are still out, but Juwan Johnson is banged up. So if you guys are playing maybe season-long leagues, I would maybe think about looking to trade him because Juwan Johnson's been extremely productive through this season thus far at the tight end position. Maybe someone needs him. Maybe their tight end's on the bye. It's probably too late in the week for that, but probably a decent time to sell high on Juwan Johnson. But to me, kind of the clear-cut play that we're looking at on the slate is just Jake Ferguson. Not priced up crazily. It is at a price tag where you start to worry a little bit. We do get Zach Ertz in a decent spot with Terry McLaurin out. Jaden Daniels is back, so that should help out the offense in general as well. So not maybe a terrible option there. But to me, it's pretty simple. We could go with Trey McBride or Tyler Warren. I'm okay with that. I might be actually a little underweight. I'm going to be overweight on Jake Ferguson and then Mason Taylor, probably about 10% there. And so lineup-wise, it's starting to take shape, right? We kind of know what we're looking at. DST-wise, I never really talk about DST because overall it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously it does matter, but like predictability-wise, it's not worth the time to spend on it. I do want to call out the lines though against the Bengals. Like that Bengals line has, I want to see the data on this. I haven't looked it up, but they got to be one of the worst, like all-time offensive lines. I feel terrible for Jake Browning. He did play bad in Monday night, much worse than he had played in the previous games. Although people might say he played better just looking at the box score, because he didn't make many mistakes. He just held on to the football much longer in whatever. He hasn't had time to throw. And the offense has been terrible. It's uninspired football there for the Bengals. And now they get a matchup with the Lions, who has pretty good now the last 3 games. They are the top pay-up option. But let's just say they only give us 8 points like they've gotten. We can get that elsewhere. And we could really just go down to probably the Texans with Cooper Rush as their quarterback. This ends up being a pretty good play. And even if it ends up being a Derrick Henry game where Derrick Henry goes off for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, which I will say could happen. It wouldn't be crazy to just see him get 25 carries. Could see that happening. But that is if the Houston offense isn't playing well. Maybe CJ Stroud throws a pick 6 that dictates the game script a little bit. Maybe I could see that. But the Texans DST at that price tag, they really should not go negative at that price tag. Very solid click there. And then I do think it's worth calling out the Seahawks DST. Like they've been pretty solid, and obviously they get the Bucs, an extremely banged up Bucs offense. Bucky Irving out, Mike Evans out, Chris Godwin is back fully healthy, but kind of a tough matchup. There's someone we could look at. I don't necessarily love them. I'd rather just go with the Texans or the Chargers. And so you see, guys, in this specific build, I have 7.2 left over. Sure, let's go with HN, and we're looking at kind of a chalky build, but also a very good build still. Now, maybe you do want to pay for the Lions. You think they're going to score 15 points. You're like, all right, that's the team I need to get to. Well, then the adjustment becomes kind of easier. Maybe you didn't want to play a chalky field. You want to go with Herbert, and maybe you go with Johnston here instead. Now, I think I would rather go a running back here just because of how loaded the slate is. So let's just switch this up. We'll go Johnston in the flat or in the receiver 3 spot. And then flex-wise, we have 6.2 left over. Well, that's where I could end up on some like Cam Scatteroo there instead. Obviously, that ends up making sense. Now, I did mention, though, that I like Woody Marks as well. What is a path that could get us to Woody Marks? I mean, we'd probably just end up paying up a little bit more at the tight end position here. But if we're trying to get to McBride, that's tough to do, right? So, like, that's why I'm just ending up on Ferguson a bunch. And so for this, like, kind of specific lineup, let's say we want to go Woody Marks. I'm fine going Texans DST. We'll go back down to Justin Fields, and we'll try to get up to Devon Achane here if possible. 7.2. 7.3, we're a little off, so you have to get off of Johnston. 5.5. McConkey, I think I would be fine with, not necessarily cash build, but this is where I would go with some like Michael Pittman instead. So I think this really lays out the slight pivots you can make that could end up being the difference between maybe a good build that doesn't cash and a great build that ends up having a really good day. Those are the slight little decisions that we have to make, and that's the tough part. Like, again, there is plenty of leverage here that we're gaining. Woody Marks is not chalk. Rico Dowdle's not chalk. And so by doing this, we are getting a little bit different by also still playing 2 of the better plays on the slate. It's a fascinating slate. I enjoyed breaking it down. Let's just show you guys kind of what we're looking at as I set up my lineup for this week as well. All right, so what I'm going to do here, guys, is you already saw the stack that I'm running out there for GPPs. I really think that's really all we have to do is when we have a lineup with Justin Herbert, just get 2 of those players in. And then from that, we're just going to force a QB stack with a pass catcher there. And then from there, let's just go ahead and kind of break down where I'm going to be making some slight updates. So I want to tell the data that I do want to be on Justin Herbert a decent amount. I'm going to raise his projected points up a little bit. What we're also going to do is we're going to set the total ownership range for the lineup. We're going to raise this up a decent amount, Typically, I like to go about 90%. We'll go 85% for this one. Min salary, we're going to bump this up to around $700 left over. The global max player exposure, we're going to bump this down to 60 maybe. We'll go 45. 45 is good. And so we're already getting capped at Justin Fields, 40%. I probably do want to get to him about 20. And Justin Herbert, I want to get to about 15%. From there, I do want to ensure that I'm getting to Daniel Jones, 10%. And then from there, probably Bryce Young, about 5% as well. Those are the players I want to make sure I'm getting to. And then running back wise, I could set a rule where I want at least 2 of those running backs I mentioned. And I think I will do that. And so what are the groupings of running backs that I want? Well, Devon Achane, I'm happy to get to. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm happy to get to. Hampton, again, this is like the spot where I'm probably, I don't want to say I'm full out fading him, but I'm going to be underweight on him. Okay. Because I just think there's better options. And if he's going to be the chalk, like Breece Hall compared to Martin Hampton this week, it wouldn't be surprising to see Breece Hall outproduce him. Okay. So I'm happy to get to that one. Javonte Williams is a play that I didn't mention, but he could also have a good game. Probably going to be even weight with him, but for this, where I'm wanting at least 2 of them in all my builds, I'm going to keep doing that. Let's see there. So from there, let's just start typing in some players. Woody Marks, Rico. Could also toss in Derrick Henry, like I mentioned. I'm not going to, but he could be someone that pops GPP-wise, would not be shocking. DeMarcado, we also need, and then we also need White in there as well. And so we got 9 running backs, and we could also consider Derrick Henry in there if we wanted to. Don't necessarily love that, but that's kind of the slate that we have. So I want at least 2 of those in all my builds. That's what we're going with there. I think that ends up being a pretty solid rule for us. Oh, Cam Skadbu. Forgot about Cam Skadbu. So we'll toss him in there as well. We got to edit. So we're going to click that. Then we're going to toss in Cam Skadbu in there. Insane slate. Update group, save. We're good to go there. It's crazy, guys. It really is a crazy slate. So yeah, Hampton, max of, he's 21% on. Let's just be max of 12%. And I typically don't like to tell the data, like not to be on someone via lowering their fantasy points projection. I'd rather like raise up a projection, but we're doing pretty well with some of the ones that are coming up. The only one that I could raise up a little bit would be Rachaad White, but I think it's coming in pretty solid here, guys, in general. So receiver wise, do we need to make any updates here? Probably not. JSN's pretty chalky. Let's sort this by salary real quick. So St. Brown, I'm going to bump up a little bit here. Projected fantasy points wise, just telling the data that he is going to be my top play on the slate. We have a lot of players that are at 0 because they're out. I should probably make a rule where they're just not listed here if they're 0, which you can do already. Just click that. It'll take out those players, but I might have that set up automatically. Again, I do like Courtland Sutton here at his price tag. I'm going to bump him up 1 projected fantasy score. From there, Quentin Johnson, I do like a decent amount. We'll bump him up a little bit. He's chalk, but I think he's going to be good chalk, so bump him up a little bit. Jacoby Myers, I do like. Bump him up a little bit. And again, guys, this is just ensuring and telling the data that we're going to get to these players. Michael Pittman, I'm going to bump up 2 because I do really like Michael Pittman Jr. a decent amount on the slate. From there, I don't really think we need to change that much. I think everyone else is going to be correctly pulled in. And so that's going to do it, guys. That's kind of why I'm looking at lineup builder wise for this video. I wish I could be a little bit more direct with like the core plays, but again, I think you guys get the point with the slate that we have. It's a fun slate. Kind of almost looks like more of a GPP slate simply because we almost have too many good lineup paths that we could go down. Whereas the last 2 weeks, it was very much, this is what we're doing, maybe a slight pivot here or there. Whereas this, you guys saw the different lineup paths we could take to still make one chalky builds for cash, but also good builds. GPP wise is where it really opens up. And you guys saw that as I was going through the lineup process. Now, if you guys would like access to that lineup builder tool, to the 9to5 cheat sheet, or any of the other tools available on the 9to5sports.com website, make sure to head on over there. All the tools are available on the website for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. I'm always working on adding in new tools for you guys as well. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.